Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Dux-Soup webinar. Today's topic is how to get started with Dux-Soup. Today's webinar will be presented, as always, by Giles Garnett, the Head of Professional Services. Live chat is being monitored by me, Jen, the Head of Customer Support, and Giles will be also answering all your questions at the end of the webinar. Thank you, and let's start our webinar.
Okay, hopefully everybody can hear me. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are. My name is Giles Garnett. I'm Head of Professional Services here at Dux-Soup. We present these webinars every 2 weeks. So today's Dux-Soup webinar, we're going to go back to basics with Dux-Soup and explain how it can assist you with your lead generation activities. We will talk about some basics regarding your LinkedIn profile, and then go through a step-by-step process of setting up Dux-Soup and explaining the functionality so that you can automate a lot of your LinkedIn lead generation activity, therefore allowing you to focus on winning new business. There'll be a combination of some slides and a lot of live demo today. So this session is being recorded, so if you need to review it later, you can always find this session again on our website. First thing we can do with Dux-Soup is carry out automated actions such as scanning and visiting profiles. We'll demonstrate all of those to you shortly. We can organize potential leads. So every time you visit a profile, you can use what's called the Dux-Soup tagging function to help you organize those leads in order to exploit them or make best use of them later. You can connect with LinkedIn profiles by sending a personalized message. So you can we can create a personalized message to send to groups of people who you send invites to. And then you can also engage and re-engage with LinkedIn prospects. What we're covering today will require either Dux-Soup Pro or Dux-Soup Turbo. All the details of those are on the website. With the free version, all you can do is visit profiles. If you wish to go beyond visiting and start with the engagement, with the messaging, then you'll need to upgrade to the Pro or Turbo products. I won't be covering any of the Turbo details today because that's, I think, covered in other webinars and in other documentation on the website. So if we now go back to my profile here. So what we need to do in order to use Dux-Soup is first of all install it. Dux-Soup is available through the Chrome Web Store, as you can hopefully see on my screen here, and also through our website. There are links from duxsoup.com. So once you have the product installed, you'll see here in the top right, I have my Dux-Soup icon here. I have the Turbo edition installed. So there are the three levels. There's the free, there's the Pro, and then there's the Turbo. So what we now need to do is decide on what we want to do with Dux-Soup. Who do we want to engage with? And one of the first things we can do with Dux-Soup is engage with our first degree network. And when I say our first degree network, those are our direct connections. So if I look at my network here, and I see here, I look at my connections. Wait for this to load. Just taking a few minutes. There we go. So here we are. This is a list of my first degree connections here. And what I can do from here is I can then, this is effectively a search result of people sitting within the LinkedIn environment. As you can see here, Dux-Soup has now popped up saying it's recognized this as a list within LinkedIn and it's available for me to do something with this list. If I now click on the duck and I click on the options tab here, button here on the top right, this then opens a new tab with all of the setting up options that are available to me with Dux-Soup. Because I'm now looking at a list of my first degree connections here, what would be of most interest here is the second activity down. So I could send a personalized message to my existing first degree connections. And I can do this using standard LinkedIn or Sales Navigator. If I turn this on, you can then see here, I've already filled this in with a custom message. And using these markers here below, _FN, _MN, etc., we can make this look like a personalized message. And what we would do then is, if we wanted to send this message to all of my first degree connections, is I would go to turn this functionality on here. So we're going to be sending this message. You see here I've got a 3,000 character limit here, so you can send quite a lot of information here, perhaps publicizing a new blog post or a newsletter or some such thing. So what you would do then is you would turn this on here, close this tab, and what we would do then is turn on this functionality here and instruct Dux-Soup to visit these profiles. What would happen then is that Dux-Soup would, from this tab here, it would work its way through this search result against my first degree profiles and send that personalized message to each and every single one of these people. It's a very powerful way to engage with your network. Now, of course, if I wanted to, I could also do this against a subset of my connections. So I could carry out a search with filters here and find a subset of my network in order to be able to send them a personalized message. Perhaps it would be only certain people in a certain role that I would be wanting to target with that message. But that's a very powerful way for you to be able to use Dux-Soup to carry out a visit to these people. Dux-Soup will gather information against that profile as it goes and send them that first degree message as per my instructions here under this tab. So that's a really useful thing. And that's how we would engage with our first degree connections. What a lot of people would want to use Dux-Soup for, though, is also growing their network. And that's where we would use this first option here, this send connection requests to second and third degree connections during visits, again, using standard LinkedIn or Sales Navigator. Now, for the purposes of this demonstration, I will use a mixture of standard LinkedIn and Sales Navigator because there are some key differences there. So if we now carry out a search within LinkedIn, let's have a quick look here. If I work within standard LinkedIn and I just carry out a simple search here for, let's have a look. Let's look at lead generation. I just carry out a people search here for people working within lead generation. You can see here I come up with 2.4 million results, which of course is a completely unachievable number to be able to send connections to. So I'm going to focus here now on second degree connections only to narrow my search down, and I still have 40,300 results. So now I'm going to narrow my search down a little bit further, and I will look within this case the Netherlands. Now this is now getting to be a better result. As you can see here now, I have a search result of 2,200, which on the face of it seems a lot better than what we had just now. However, there's a limitation. It's a LinkedIn limitation. If I work within standard LinkedIn, as you can see here on this page, we have 10 results on this first page, and if you look at the bottom here, we're limited to 100 pages. So if we're working within standard LinkedIn, we are limited to seeing the first 1,000 results, and that is purely a LinkedIn limitation. If I was to carry out a search within Sales Navigator, we'll now flick to Sales Navigator. Actually, what might be interesting is if I do that one, because then we can look at the same search result within Sales Navigator. Wait for this to open a second. Again, we still have this just over 2,200 results, which is what it's a similar result. Now, the difference with Sales Navigator is that we now see, if I scroll down this page, we actually have 25 results per page and up to 100 pages. So with Sales Navigator, you can see the first 2,500 results. And that's one of the key differences between standard LinkedIn and Sales Navigator. The other benefit of Sales Navigator, the difference with Sales Navigator, is if you're carrying out searches within groups, which is a very powerful way to be able to engage with people who have a certain interest or working within a certain industry. If you're working within standard LinkedIn, you can only search against groups that you are a member of. If we go to Sales Navigator and we look at under advanced search and we look for leads here, if we scroll down this search criteria here and we look under groups, we can actually search here within any group that is in LinkedIn without being a member of that particular group. So I can do a search of an entire group. This has come up with 8 only here because I have other filters on. So if we now turn off these other filters, we can now see that we get a much bigger result. So what you can actually do here using the groups function within Sales Navigator is be able to narrow down your search an awful lot more. The reason we're looking for narrowing down our searches here is because we are looking at a way of connecting with people in certain industries. So once again, I will put in a location here and come up with okay, we have a result here of 60. So if I now press the search button, we'll now get a search result of 60. As I say, your targets here, if you're working within standard LinkedIn, is under 1,000 if you're going to hit all of your search results, and under 2,500 if you're working within Sales Navigator. So if you are now happy with your search result of the people that you wish to connect with, what you would do now is we would click on our duck at the top, and what we would want to do now is set up some sort of a message to the people that you want to connect with. You can just connect with people without a message. It's been proven, though, that if you put a personalized message against this connection, then your connection request, you are much more likely to be successful in achieving a successful connection. So here, you can say here, send connection request to second and third degree connections using standard LinkedIn or Sales Navigator. And what you would do is say, yes, I wish to include a personalized message with the connection request. Recommended. That's the recommended action. Limited to only 300 characters here because these people are not yet a first degree connection. And again, we can use these same markers as we can with the first degree connection messaging. So what I've done here is I've put in a very brief message. Of course, this you would tailor to your industry and tailor to your target market, depending on who you would be sending your connection requests to. So if you were happy with all of this, then you would then set the robot off to visit these people. Now, another important thing that we can do as we go through and visit every single profile, it's a very useful thing with Dux-Soup, is that we can also tag these profiles as we go. So as you can see here, we have this tag profiles option here within Dux-Soup. And what we can do here is we can add personalized tags as we go through. So if I put in here lead gen for this particular group, you can actually add up to 5 tags. So I'm going to put lead generation and I'm going to put NL because I'm going to say that this is my me reviewing a group of people within the Netherlands. So I'm going to have those 2 tags there. And what I would do now, if I was happy with all of these activities, I would close my options, I would go to my search results, and from here in the top right, I would now say, right, I now want to visit and connect to these people. So in order to be able to do that, I'm now going to press that one and send that one off to visit these profiles, and you can see what will happen. Get the opportunity to review everything that you're going to be doing, press OK, and what we'll see now is we'll see Dux-Soup go off and carry out some activities. And currently I see my sharing option has stopped. Hang on a second, I will try to reshare. Hopefully you now have my screen back. Is it back? Yes, okay, we're back. Excellent, good. Sorry about that. So what Dux-Soup is now doing, and you can see this in the bottom right-hand corner. Apologies for the technical interruption there. So Dux-Soup is now on my behalf visiting these people. It's going to, first of all, Peter, and it's now sending him a connection request on my behalf, and it's adding some tags as it goes, as I set up just now. And basically, I could now leave Dux-Soup to run against this this list, and it will now work its way through this list based upon the criteria that I have set up within the Dux-Soup options. And what we'll do is we'll just wait for it to visit, finish sending this particular one. Hopefully that won't take too long. Now we can go into a bit more detail shortly about how quickly we want the robot to run on our behalf. And as you can see now, Dux-Soup's working. It's now pausing because that's the associated with the speed that I've allowed the robot to run at the moment. And what we should now see is it should now visit the second person on this list. And down in the bottom right-hand corner, what we could do now is carry on working in other applications or in other tabs. And Dux-Soup will just happily tick along now, sending out my connection requests to these people. And then, yeah, as you can see here, tagging them as they go. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to stop the robot, because we've done something now and we can now see how that's worked. So one thing I talked about just now was tagging. So I've carried out a couple of visits here against some profiles. And if I now click on the Dux-Soup option here at the top right, and if I click on search by tag, so here I have now a number of tags down here, which are, some of these are with the duck icon by them. Those are auto tags that happen by the system, are put on there by the Dux-Soup system, so that Dux-Soup knows the automated actions that are taken against these things. But if I now type in lead gen, it picks up immediately who I've tagged with that particular tag. And we can see here, these particular people, even though they're not my first degree connections, these people within LinkedIn have been tagged with that particular tag for my, and I see we have stopped sharing again. Hang on a second, we will try sharing once again. So obviously, second. Hopefully we're back again. Sorry about this. I think we're back online, hopefully. So now we can, yeah, as I say, we can successfully then filter out the people that we've been visiting. Perhaps we would label these with campaigns or that sort of thing that we would want to tag. You can also use the tagging when you're visiting your first degree connections, so you can categorize your first degree connections accordingly. It's a really important thing. So what we've done there is we have visited, we've shown how to send some connection requests to people. One of the other interesting things that we can do with Dux-Soup is scan results. And so what we would do with scanning results, it's a way to be able to skim off some data from search results within LinkedIn, and then you can manipulate the data offline away from LinkedIn or away from the system. And then at a later date, once you've refined your list, then process that separately. So I'll demonstrate that to you now. So using this same search result here, if I click on the duck here and I go down to the scan profiles option, what we'll do here, we'll press the scan button and try sharing again. Yes, far from ideal today, but apologies for this. Hopefully We're now back up and running. Somewhat intermittent today. So what we're doing now is I'm scanning this list, and that was done by pressing on the duck and pressing the scan option. And what Dux-Soup is now doing is it's scanning off some data according to this search result. And then it's automatically flipped to page 2 now as it's gathering information. It will now scroll through, gather that information, and then I should be able to do something with that data offline. So if I now press stop, and what we can do now is that we scan some data. What you might want to do then is, if you were wanting to filter that data further, you can use this option here, and you can download data. Now with the download data option here, we've got 2 sets of data. We've got the visit data, and those are from the people that I've been visiting and sending invites to, and you get a lot of information in that particular file. What I want to do in this instance is look at my scan data. So if I press the scan data button, what we then do is we'll download a CSV file. And if we open that CSV file, it comes through as a CSV file. We'll just format it so that it is readable, a little bit easier to read. There we go. So what we've done here is you can see the time and date of this, when this scan occurred, and this was the search result that I carried out. What we have here is a number of columns. So we have the unique ID of the person from LinkedIn. That's unique to every LinkedIn user. We have the time that I scanned the results. We have the URL of the profile that I scanned. We have first name, last name, middle name, and job title. And what you could do is you can scan any results within LinkedIn. That could be your first degree connections, that could be various search results, it could be members of groups, and then you could filter that according to job title or perhaps other criteria if you wanted to. And what we can do then is, if we close that one down, we don't want to save that. What we can do then is using the functionality within Dux-Soup to revisit data. So for example, we've scanned a search result. We're now looking at perhaps we've filtered it, we've edited it, and we've got a refined result. What we can do now is re-upload that data into Dux-Soup. So we'll take that scan that I just carried out, we'll upload that, and what we have now here is the revisit tool. And with the revisit tool, this effectively works exactly the same way as a search result in LinkedIn. So against any list, you've re-uploaded it, you could then say to Dux-Soup, okay, now I want to go and visit these profiles and perhaps just tag them with one of your personalized tags. Or you want to send them a connection request. You can use the various options here within Dux-Soup. It could just be purely that actually you want to go through a group of your first degree connections and perhaps endorse them with endorse a number of their skills. It's a very powerful way to trigger an engagement with an existing connection, is to use that endorse option there. One thing to be aware of when you're using the revisit tool, and this is quite an important thing when you're using Dux-Soup in general, because you'll be visiting a lot of profiles in a relatively short period of time, is the skipping options. So you have here the option to skip profiles depending on certain criteria. These are the default settings. So if they're outside of your network, so if they're beyond a third degree connection, then Dux-Soup would by default skip them. And then by default, we have the profile photo being blank gets skipped. That's very industry specific. Tends to be if people don't have a profile photo, they're not particularly active on LinkedIn, so may not be an interesting potential connection. You also then have the history skipper. Depending on how intensively you're using Dux-Soup and how active you are on LinkedIn, you may wish to set this accordingly. What I'd like to touch on now, and it's a very important part of Dux-Soup, is the daily limits and account safety. So under the Dux-Soup options here, we have a tab which is relating to throttling. Now, LinkedIn, most of you are probably aware, do not allow use of automated tools on their website. But we at Dux-Soup are working continuously to keep you and your account safe. And we have built-in functionality into Dux-Soup to prevent detection of automated activities. And the developers are constantly reviewing, testing, and updating the software to prevent our users from running into trouble. So as long as you remain within our recommended settings for profile visits and messaging, your account will remain safe. So by default, Dux-Soup is configured as per this, my setup here. Dux-Soup is configured to stay below the limits set by LinkedIn, which is 100 profile visits per day. Now, it is possible to override those limits, but you have to check this box here to understand that you accept the risks associated with doing that. And if you check that box, you can see here it's possible to override that depending on the type of LinkedIn profile you have. Then you can set that accordingly to how you feel safe. What we would recommend is that if you're using any sort of automation with LinkedIn and you're just starting out, the recommendation is to start slowly and build up slowly over a period of weeks. So if you're using, if you're visiting maybe 50 visits per day over a couple of weeks, and see if there's no trouble, then start to accelerate and use it more. For the number of connection requests, we recommend never trying to increase the size of your network by more than 5% per day. Of course, the bigger the network that you have, the more you can do. Now, this is a very important thing, is something to keep an eye on, a very close eye on, is your conversion rate. So if you're getting a lot of rejections or perhaps people not responding, you might need to think very closely about your search criteria. So the targeting, how effectively you're targeting your connections, perhaps the message that you're sending in your personalized message, or perhaps even how your profile is on LinkedIn. You really need to look at that and work on that. We'll come to outstanding invitations in a second, but one other thing that you can do to help keep your account safe is make use here of the planner. The planner is there again to help you with your account safety. And what we have here is the ability to put the robots to sleep at certain times. So for me, the bright green is when I'm happy for the robots to run on my behalf with automated actions. There's a lot of people who don't want to have automated connections or messages going out at 2 o'clock on a Sunday morning, for example. So with this, you can manage exactly when you're happy for the Dux-Soup robot to act on your behalf. Some people like to micromanage it and will only let it run at very limited times of the day. I'm a bit more flexible and let it run usually during my work hours. So it's when I'm active on LinkedIn, that's when I'm happy for it to run, and I can monitor that. So as I mentioned just now, one thing that's very important is keeping an eye on the invitations that you're sending out. If you start to send out a considerable number of invitations, you will need to keep an eye on that. So what we're going to do is we'll have a look at where to find your outstanding invitations. We'll click over here on invitations. We'll click on manage. You can only do this in your standard LinkedIn profile under managed invitations and under sent here. So what we have here is my list of people that I've sent invitations to in the past. Now, I have a relatively short list here because I keep it managed, but what we generally advise that if an invite has not been accepted after 4 weeks, it's unlikely that it's going to be accepted. And that's either because your target isn't interested or perhaps they're not very active on LinkedIn. And our recommendation is here to keep this figure here of outstanding invitations below 500. So make that regular review and withdrawal of your invitations. That needs to be a key part of your business process. It's one of those, if the number of outstanding invites that you have is building up very quickly, that has been seen in the past as one of the red flags to LinkedIn of some sort of automation on your account. So that's something to really keep an eye on. What you can also do here, if you are wanting to bulk withdraw invites, you can withdraw them all page by page. is to scan this. You can use the scanning function to scan the people you've invited in the past, save it, and perhaps revisit them later with a different invitation, with a different connection request, perhaps. Okay, I think what I've done there is cover all of the basics on Dux-Soup. The slides, which I'm just going to recap a couple of things here. These are the highlights that I want to just recap. Search criteria and targeting of your audience, your potential new connections is really important. You can just carry out visits to profiles and use that as a way to trigger activity. Of course, people will then get a notification that you visited their profile, and that may trigger some sort of reaction. And when you're visiting, you can also use the tagging functionality. We can message first-degree connections. We can carry out send connection requests. We can do the tagging. We have the skipping, which we went through as well very briefly. We looked at scanning, downloading, and revisiting. And then we touched upon the account safety, the throttling, making sure that you keep your account safe with these automated activities, throttling the speed of the robot and that sort of thing. And also how you can manage when you're happy for the robot to run using the planner. Finally, we touched there on the managing outstanding invitations, and I can't emphasize that enough. If you're getting over 500 in that list there, then that's one of those things you need to keep an eye on, especially if you get to a point where you're sending out 50 or 100 new connection requests per day. That number will build up very quickly unless you have an incredibly high conversion rate. I believe these slides will be made available later. There are some important links here. So the homepage, the top one, ducksoup.com. We have the support one, which is the third one down. All of the basic setup activities for how to install the extension, and a lot of the things that I've reviewed here are on the channel.ducksoup.com page. That's YouTube channel, and there's lots of very simple starter guides on there, little short clips which should help you along the way. We also have a Facebook page and a very active Facebook community, people willing to help and provide support as well there. I think I've been talking for long enough, and apologies that we had some technical issues earlier with regards to sharing. Hopefully you've stayed with us and persevered, and it's been worthwhile. Jin, were there any questions? Because I've not had visibility of the chat board at all.
Quite a few, but I think we managed. I have one question from Jim, which I did not reply. I did not have time. So is Chrome the only option for using Dux-Soup? I use Edge normally.
There are a number of other browsers which are now supported that Dux-Soup now works with. The information is, let's just pull up the support website. Hopefully everybody can still see my screen. And if we click on here under other browsers, you can see here that we have a number of other browsers also supported with Dux-Soup. So yes, the information is there on the support website with information around that, using various different engines that Dux-Soup has been tested against. So hopefully that answers Jim's question.
Yeah, and that's about it. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, I think in 2 weeks' time, the next topic of webinar is the next topic is regarding processing different lists, having different sources of data, all sorts of different data that can be made available with regards Dux-Soup, and how Dux-Soup handles and processes all the different data sources and lists. Anything further, Jim? Okay. Thank you for joining, everybody. The link to the webinar will be up on the website in the next day or two. And yes, maybe speak to you next time. Thank you.